Hey, is everybody ready? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a regularly scheduled committee of the whole meeting called this listening at home. We have some presenters in the crowd today. We have our normal staff present. I won't name them all off. And then all the councilors are present at this meeting as well. Just to clarify, we've been getting a lot of calls about the mask mandate and how that works. And we're going to be following the governor's guidelines, and we'll be talking about that today. But for the city councilors, as we move forward, the order from the governor, as we understand it, and we'll be clarifying it later on, that if you are vaccinated, you do not have to wear your mask. If you are vaccinated, you are not required to wear your mask. So thank you. And so we have a full agenda today, and we'll turn this over to our city administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is Mr. John Swenson, the Community Relations Officer for the Virginia PD, regarding information for the CIT model.
Lieutenant Swenson. Just come on up to the podium if you would, please. Make sure the green light is on, and welcome, Lieutenant.
Hi, Lieutenant Swenson with the Virginia Police. I'm also the Community Relations Officer and also working Range Mental Health on the Crisis Intervention Team. Currently, we have myself, Gabby, Megan, and those are the main teams from Range Mental Health, and I also include Jada Strumble. She's the opiate technician too, so she helps out with a lot of things. Since we actually got started, it's only been about maybe 2-3 weeks that the team has completely been together. Since then, we've identified approximately 27 different individuals or families that are kind of in need from interactions with patrol and patrol officers. But then also with that in conjunction, working with the team, we've identified and worked with 20 different individuals. They range from anything using substance abuse, mental health, homelessness, or other medical needs. A lot of the referrals come from the fire department. There are some that come from the police department as well.
Okay, Lieutenant, I know that this grant that was awarded was the collaborative between the police department and Range Mental Health, you being the conduit as a community relations officer. I know there's just one part of your job moving forward. You know, in light of the environment that we live in today, and some of the changes, some of the models of community orientation, community policing, I think it's important for us to take a leadership role moving forward, and our staff and the police department yourself have done so. The city council has given you all the tools that you need moving forward for that. So as you begin this process, as you embark on this community relations collaborative with Range Mental Health, I can see the results already in the short period of time that you've been here. So appreciate everything you're doing and standing for taking on this position. As I know it has additional duties and responsibilities, and I know that you have a passion for it. So let's talk about see if any councilors have any questions first. Lieutenant, Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, thank you for what you're doing, John. Can you give us a little insight as to what your plan is moving forward, like where we're at now and what you would like to see, any foreseeable needs, wants, that kind of stuff, so as we're looking forward, we can make sure this, I want to make sure this is funded over the grant cycle. Like, how do we prepare for that moving forward? So if it's just a short little snapshot of what you're thinking.
So, we'll try to be short about that. That's could be hours of discussion. There's 2 positions that are grant funded. One position that's actually in conjunction with Range Mental Health, and then my position within the police department. For some of the grants that I've worked with Chief Mattson you need to have all 4 of those positions together to actually qualify for them. So back in October, when I was actually looking for funding and grants and stuff like that, we went to qualified because we didn't have the mental health practitioner, we didn't have the therapist. I had an opiate tech, but I didn't have the other 2 on board. So some of those grants are all in, kind of have an all-encompassing type deal. Very difficult for a smaller department to have, but the benefits for this community can be huge. There's already a large number. Like I said, I've got 27 names right in front of me right here, and that's only from 1 shift on patrol. That doesn't include the 3 other shifts that we're hoping to get together once a week. What we're doing with the team is actually sitting down with patrol officers, identifying who is in need, and then building that list. The goal on this is to actually reduce calls of services. So sometimes one particular person will generate about 300 to 400 calls of service in a year, and they're realistically not police related. They're all dealing with mental health or some sort of impairment. And this team can actually come in and actually address it, reduce those calls of services, which basically what we'll do will, one, financially, it'll impact the departments, the fire department and the police department, as far as having to send out officers, having to send out paramedics out to this fire rigs. It's pretty expensive. So having us go out there instead is going to reduce that cost. 2, it's going to be safer for this person. It's also going to be safer for our officers. It's going to be safer for the fire department, because we're interacting with them. We're bringing an actual professional to them and saying, hey, look, we understand you need services. We understand that, you know, this is going on. This is how we can help you. This is what we can bring to you. Is everybody actually going to follow through with that? No, I'm not that naive, but even if out of 20 people that we meet in a week, say 15 of them actually follow through with us, keep up with the program, and we're actually able to take them to the new level, then that's 15 people that patrol and fire department don't have to work with and engage. So that's my goal, and that's how I see that kind of going. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, and I think it sounds like you're a crack filler. Like these people that fall through the cracks because of whatever reason, that's what you and your team are doing. And I just, this gives me a lot of hope for where we're headed as a city and what we can do. And so I would ask that as you see needs arise, make sure you're communicating those. You know, maybe there's other potential community partners, stuff we can do as a city. So I just can't thank you enough, John, that you've taken the lead on this. And I'm not surprised by the numbers from my experience, but I really appreciate what you guys and gals are doing, and I hope that we can continue this as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Before we move to Councilor Bearbow and to Councilor Paulson, you know, this $2 million grant that the Regional Health Center received, me being sitting on the board, I have a little bit more knowledge of that grants process, how that moved forward. And really was targeted to expand this throughout the region. Virginia being the first because we had Rangeman Health is in Virginia, but at the same time, the Virginia Police Department's policies on the proactive approach you have to community policing by engaging the public, by dedicating an officer like yourself, Lieutenant, to this position, help solidify and secure that collaborative, that partnership that we have together now. So moving forward, we look, this is just a pilot process, and this potential grant could be, you know, an annual grant if it's successful. So far, it seems that it is. So thank you, Lieutenant. Councilor Bearbow, and then on to Councilor Paulson.
Yeah, John, I really appreciate what you're doing here from my perspective. As you know, I'm a retired pharmacist, so I've been involved with people of the stature that you're talking about for years before I retired. And as far as I'm concerned, we'll find funding for you to continue this program. I'm 100% in favor of this program. I just have a couple questions. I'm assuming you're starting to build a big referral base where you can refer these people with phone numbers, people, clinics, whatever it may be, and I hope you have a total list that if you disappear from the program can be passed on and moved down and continue with the 4 people to make the granting process a lot easier. But I want to see a great referral program because that's the key to making success on this. So you can get these people to the right thing in the right places confidentially and protect their rights. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I just hope you're going to build that referral base. Thank you.
Definitely am, and that's part of a lot of the disconnect that I see. There's a lot of resources here in St. Louis County, especially here in Virginia, but a lot of times the people that I see will actually identify the fact that they've gone to a service and either that individual is unable to help them or really forward them, so they're kind of like stuck. And when I start talking with them, we start working through different services, and we're able to identify where their needs are, and I just kind of facilitate where they need to go. And so it's been a process.
So you can do a mix and match then, basically. When you find it doesn't work one place, you can go to another place and then get services taken care of.
Sure.
That's what I'm hearing, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Ask a lot of questions.
Thank you, Councilor Beard. Well, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much, Lieutenant Swenson. We really do appreciate all the work that is being done, and I know Jada's been a wonderful asset too, so I think that's excellent that she's on board in that capacity. Yesterday, I received an email, and I think maybe one other counselor did, and I actually followed up and called the executive director. But apparently, there is a service coming here, and they're going to be located in the Arrowhead building, and I want to pass along this email, possibly for some collaboration. They're looking for it's the Behavioral Health Network team. They're looking for a team leader. And if I may just read a little bit, Mayor?
Yes, please do.
Is that okay? Just because I feel like what Councilor Baraboo is saying with that networking and that collaborative piece, this may be part of that puzzle that could help bring everyone together. Just as a team leader is needed to guide the new behavioral health network headquartered in Virginia, the team leader will bring together the ideas of healthcare and other professionals in developing and coordinating activity to address the region's major concern about mental health and chemical health. Under the direction of the network members, the team leader first will develop the network's vision, mission, and goals, as well as collaborative agreements and procedures. Emphasis will be on identifying and fostering opportunities for collaborations and partnerships between multiple community and regional health and social service providers, including local government units. Then there will be emphasis on promoting the cross-agency collaborative team model to build networking support among professionals and policymakers. They're going to start a strategic plan. But basically, after I talked to the executive director yesterday, what this person, if they do find this person to fill this position, it would be trying to bring in, I know they work in Ely and they work closely with Essentia because that's the health entity there, but they'd like to be able to work closer with Ely here in Virginia to address and identify that, as well as range mental health, as well as community outreach. So if I may get your email before you leave today, I think that this may be somewhat of a support to what you guys are doing.
May I ask, did that come from John?
John,
Okay, I already got it.
you got it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
okay.
part of that team, and we kind of sit together and kind of talk. I normally just listen.
Okay.
I'm sitting here with at least maybe a dozen or more professionals that have years of experience more than me, so I usually keep my mouth shut and just listen to them and kind of get some ideas, and it's a good collaborative experience.
So do you feel like it will bring some collaboration with this team leader, or is that something that you guys will just develop more your mission and your vision on your own?
I think that everybody's going to need to have kind of their own piece to this puzzle.
Sure.
And that everybody's gonna need to work together on things. Otherwise, it's just gonna be too expensive for one person to actually take on. And, you know, with this, oh, what did they call it? Range Mental Health came up with an actual name for the crisis response team. But anyhow, the sheriff department's kind of looking at us. Hibbing Police is kind of looking at us a little bit to see how this works. And as this program kind of develops, I actually see this kind of expanding across the region. So I really honestly, wholeheartedly believe that this can be a huge benefit to this area. It's just a matter of putting the legwork in and making it happen.
I really appreciate that, and I didn't mean to read it if you've already heard it, but it's just something that came across, and I just found it interesting and pretty relevant to what we were speaking about of today. And you know, if there's anything that we can do, we would, you know, we're here to spread the word as well. So thank you very much.
If there's something that I can do, I mean, I've even mentioned with others about talking with senators and congressmen, you know, to figure out how to bring in money, state funding. It's going to be more than a city entity that's going to be able to continue this. Grants don't last forever.
Now, one other last point, if I may. Apparently, there was it's an HRSA or HRSA grant that they received for this position. So is that, have you heard of HRSA, HRS? I had to Google it just now.
So if I may, there's actually, I believe, 2 different grants. I'll look over my right shoulder here at the fire chief. And
Grant writer.
so the one grant is actually for Gabby's position, which is she's a social worker and a therapist, to work in conjunction with the police department and the fire department. Mainly, I think it was mainly with the fire department, but it got brought over with the police department. It just makes sense to kind of join forces. The other grant that I'm aware of is specifically for Range Mental Health. That's that $2 million grant that you're talking about. And I'm not exactly sure what that is. I was hoping that Janice would be here to kind of explain that, but she's not here right now.
Well, I can give an update about that if it was necessary, but it's the collaborative $2 million grant that is not only, it's a regional grant, it's a federal grant, it's potentially a renewable grant with respect to how range mental health services are provided and how they coordinate and collaborate with local entities, particularly law enforcement and EMS, where they assign one individual to law enforcement, one individual to EMS, and they use that starting here, but spreading it around the region, so that $2 million grant will benefit the entire region, not just what we're servicing here. Okay, thank you very much, Lieutenant. Appreciate the update. Keep up all the good work, and we look forward to some additional information. Oh, I think I see Councilor Freely had his light on. Councilor Freely.
Yeah, it would be remiss for me to not mention the fact that the work that you do, John, the value, it cannot be overstated. And I can speak from that on firsthand knowledge, having been an administrator with the St. Louis County School District back during my day of working. And it was during the advent of the beginning of the SRO program through the St. Louis County Sheriff's Department. And those deputies became an immediate, integral, valuable asset to our school districts and collaborative partners with the faculty and staff. But most importantly, were exceedingly invaluable to the students in our building, and to get the comfort level that was necessary for the students to have with people in your position of authority. And in today's times, when the stigma that's being attached to policing, which is unjustified, unnecessary, and unacceptable in my opinion, it's people like you that can reverse that trend with the youth in the communities today. So our advocacy as a student council is absolutely essential to your programming, and I'll do anything and everything I can to assist in that effort.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. Okay, anybody else? Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Item number 2 on the agenda is Mr. Jason Strand to discuss a parking ticket.
Yes, Mr. Strand, is he in the audience? He's not on the line?
Nope, nope.
Okay, we'll hold that in abeyance. Maybe he'll be contacting us a little bit later on, or maybe he'll be contacting the police department as directed in an earlier conversation. Okay, let's move on.
Thank you. Item number 3 is approve the resolution for change order PCO 72.1 for the MEC regarding signage revisions and additions.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Council. Today, it is my pleasure to bring to you another change order. This is the 21st change order that we have had with the MEC project. Now, while that may sound like a lot, we are actually on RFI 161. Every RFI can result in a change order. So being at 161 RFIs and having only had 21 change orders, want to give kudos out to our design team, our contractors, our architect for all of the vetting process that goes into that. Also, additionally, of the 21 change orders, 5 of those change orders have been credits back to us. Of the 21 change orders, 6 of the change orders have been change orders that we have initiated to improve the building. So you will see the change order process in this project has been going very beneficial towards us. Today's change order that bringing to the council for approval is yet another credit of $23,947.37. What this change order is for is, if you remember the artist rendering of the building, on the left of the main entrance to the arenas, we had lettering on the outside of the building that said Miners Event and Convention Center. We are recommending, and the design team has recommended, that we seek a credit for that lettering at this point. For the main reason being that if we put those letters up and then sell naming rights to the building, we will have to change those letters. Well, those letters will be drilled into the metal siding that we have there, so we'd then have to patch that, which we would have a risk of it leaking. So we just believe that it would be better at this point to not put a name on the building there. Now, in my mind, where we go as far as a name or a sign that recognizes what this building is, in the design process, we did put in several empty runs of conduit outside of the building. One goes all the way to 12th Avenue. Another one goes over to the Circle Drive that we have as the drop-off area. Both of these are for future signs. At this point, what I would recommend that our design team start looking into doing is working with some of our sign companies here in the area to put a small sign out there that we would be able to easily modify in the future once we do have naming rights secured. So that was the long drawn-out version of I'm asking you guys to approve a change order in a deduct of $23,947.37.
So
Okay, thank you,
moved.
Brian. Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by
Support.
Counselor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. And thank you for rushing back for us. We did have a meeting last night, and we did talk about this. And we are also very mindful that this money still be earmarked, and we don't spend it in other areas until we know exactly what we're doing with this total amount of money from the sign. So we have a lot of discussion yet on how we're going to do that until we have naming rights. But we're just trying to hold this money for future use of signage. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. This might be a little bit of a nitpicky on my part, but whenever we've done change orders in the past, Kraus Anderson always adds 2.5%. When we do a change order and a deduction, do they deduct 2.5%?
I don't have that paperwork in front of me, but I would believe that they do, but I will have to double check to ensure that that is factually correct.
So that would change it to almost $600 less.
Well, that would be incorporated in that change order.
I don't see that in the document, but if you could check into that, that'd be.
I will.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Paulson. So it's been moved and supported to approve the change order and the deduction of PCO-72.1, a deduction in the amount of $23,947.37. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
The next item on the agenda is item number 4, review the request from Sean Simperman for an extension to begin construction at the city-owned Lot 3, Block 2, Fairview Edition.
John, do you have any information about this specifically, about the extension? I think this is the first request of an extension in this parcel from what I recall,
For this parcel, correct.
for this parcel. Thank you very much.
He
Okay,
does have a letter in the packet where he states that,
Yeah.
of course, the pandemic put everybody on hold last year.
of course.
And then this year, the price of building lumber is astronomical at this moment.
Yeah, understandable.
It
Thank
was
you.
to have started construction by April 27th, and he has not yet.
Okay, thank you. Looking for council action.
I will move the extension.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the extension and supported by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda is the review the memorandum of understanding with International Association of Firefighters regarding alternate work schedule. And this is coming back to you from a very long discussion we had a while ago about changing our dual role schedules from the regular 8-hour shifts they're on now to 12-hour shifts. We finally have enough dual roles, or I'm sorry, enough single roles hired to run the EMS calls on a 12-hour shift. When we first talked about implementing the change from 8 to 12, we didn't have enough staff. So the council had given us approval to hire up to 6 more to get to the point where we can do this alternate schedule. And we do have Battalion Chief Joel Martinson here to discuss.
Okay, thank you. Before, what's the proper, Battalion Chief Martinson comes to the front. Would anybody have any questions for him with respect to that? I know we did approve it. There's been a discussion with the IAFF. You have the information in your packet. We looked at approving the schedules, indicated that we'd be able to do that and approve that under memorandum of understanding, provided we had enough personnel. We do have enough personnel. We did make the authority to hire. So now we want to implement this work schedule on a memorandum of understanding. So I remember that conversation, but if anybody has any questions for Battalion Chief Martinson, we can have him come up first. I'll go to Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just wonder what's going to happen as people move up and we backfill. At what point will the 12-hour shift not work because of attrition and that kind of stuff? And will we
Battalion
need
Chief
a-
Martinson?
We are actually going to meet with Deputy Chief Frederickson and Chief Lewis this afternoon on that. We have a lot of ironing out to do. It's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be some bumps in the road here. There's some vacations that were picked already prior to the schedule change. So this first month's going to be
Okay,
a lot of moving around and stuff. So
okay, that's fine.
I don't have a lot of those answers quite yet.
Nope, that's all right. When you get them, if you just send us an email, I'll move approval of the memorandum of understanding.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the memorandum of understanding regarding the 12-hour shift with IF local. Is there support for that?
All support for discussion.
Okay, supported by Councilor Freely for discussion. Further discussion, Councilor Freely.
Just real quick, Sherry, has there been a cost analysis? Is there going to be any additional costs incurred to our budget with regard to this scheduling?
I think when the chief initially presented it, he had felt that it would at least be a break even.
Okay.
It costs a little over $100,000 per single roll. So he felt that, I don't know if the chief's, yeah, here you are. All right, he speak for himself.
That would be through reimbursement from other
For
means?
the transfers that we're missing,
Okay.
yeah.
So there is a revenue source that's going to be balancing this? hopefully. Okay.
Yeah, I'll address that and with some solid numbers. Hi, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Chief.
Your question was as to cost analysis, so I will take the last payroll period, for example. We missed 16 transfers that we did not have staff or ambulances to cover in the last payroll period. So if you take those 16 and you do the $1,200 amount that each of those transfers bring in, it more than pays for this.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Battalion Chief Martinson. Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none.
Mayor, I do have one other item.
Yes, go ahead, Britt.
We just noted this morning that we forgot to add a paragraph in here about the personal days.
Okay,
Personal days are supposed to be 2 shifts.
right?
Now that their shifts are changing, we need to change them from 8-hour shifts to 2 shifts, which are 12-hour shifts.
Right?
I want to make sure everybody's understanding that that was the intent, was we didn't mean to harm the existing single roles in any way, shape, or form. We wanted them to be able to take their scheduled time off.
Of
if they were
course.
going to.
Sure. Any issues there with the council? Thank you, Britt. Seeing none, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 6 is approve the lease for a RICO IMC 2500 copier for the Administrative Assistant Office, which is actually the City Attorney's Office.
I will move the lease agreement.
Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Bearable. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 7 is approve this managed services agreement with Pantheon Computers and the City of Virginia and the City of Virginia Police Department. This is our IT.
This is state required vendor, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
BCA vetted.
BCA vetted vendor, yes. Okay, thank you. And they've been performing this function previously
For a year, yes.
for a year, correct? Okay, thank you. Okay, looking for council action.
I'll move the agreement for discussion.
Counselor Johnson moves the agreement for discussion. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Bearable. Further discussion, anyone? Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. What's at 1308 18th Street North? I'm looking at the locations covered here on page 29. The golf course. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I have 2 questions. Have staff felt that this is adequate service for what the needs are? You know, I think when Pantheon first came in, you guys were pretty happy with them. So I guess I'd like to just hear what staff feels overall.
I think we've had a few bumps in the road that weren't related to Pantheon. So thankfully, they rode the wave with us with the internet change and the things we've done with the phone system. So it's been an interesting year, but they've been great. They've been responsive. I know that the police department, it's phenomenal. It's a night and day difference between our previous vendor and the police department. Yeah.
And then that leads me to my next question, because the other one, is it called Rogers? So Sherry, so I think when we first talked about this, like I used to watch that all the time when we were doing some Compudyne stuff and then Pantheon and the transition. With Rogers coming in, and I try to watch that on the schedule of bills, but what is our overall expenditure then between those two on a monthly average? And was that budgeted for that high,
Offhand, I don't have that dollar amount.
that dollar?
But I can get it for you. But we did budget, yeah. Roger, if
budgeted.
I may say, Rogers does mainly the police, PD.
And does he do more troubleshooting, or is it just because it's more that FBI, more troubleshooting than
Yeah,
anything?
he's the one that physically can be here. So he has been vetted also by Pantheon and by the BCA. So like yesterday, 5:05, I was actually sitting here in the office, the internet went down again. When the internet goes down at City Hall, it goes down at every other building. So
Got it.
then I call Roger, say, I'll get City Hall, can you go get the fire hall, can you get the golf course, can you get Public Works, can you go and reset all their routers?
So he's our boots on the ground when maybe we had that initial discussion with Pantheon, we were not sure if they were going to be able to do that. And then we contract directly with Rogers itself. It's not a subcontract of Pantheon.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 8 is the discussion regarding the bonding bill resolution for the next 2022 state bonding bill. It was suggested by a couple councilors that maybe we put in a request for the 2023 street and infrastructure improvement project to see if the state would assist us on some of our costs for that project. If there's other items that the council would like to consider for the state bonding request, we sure can, but it was just bringing it here for discussion today.
I think I'll just start. I did send you an email with respect to that. I think the suggestion by Matt Reed about trying to seek that comes from our engineer of record, SCH, Matt Reed, our representative, that it's important that, it's a challenge to try to get street improvement money other than your state aid street money that you normally get on an annual basis. But this is a bonding project, and if we use the circumstances surrounding the steam conversion and all those things about the collapsing of the streets and things of that nature, because it's an infrastructure program, I think the next bonding bill wouldn't be this year, obviously, but in the next bonding bill, I think roads and streets would be a prudent move moving forward. I think to ask the state for the money, use whatever sources we have from our legislative representatives, whatever we have available, to seek that and put together a package of why we need this money and the reason that we're doing this money, and to show that we already are made a significant investment in our street projects 2021 and 2022, and that, our neighborhood revitalization, the roads and streets connected to the pathways for the bike trails and all those kind of things. So would all those arguments that we use, all those points that we would use as examples of why this would be appropriate use of state money to award us some money for 2023. And we do have some requests in at the federal level for 2022 in the event that earmarks are going to be approved. So that would be, I think, should be on our bonding bill list, probably the highest priority, because I think the general public wants streets and repairs is one of the top priorities within the city, and the challenge that we've always had is where do we get the funding for it? So I think it would be prudent for us to do that. So thank you. Anybody else have any other? This is you want this. These are the bonding bill resolution for this. So there may be other bonding bill requests, but this on the table right now is we'd like us to approve a bonding bill request for the 2023 street improvement project. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I would like to also point out that the Chestnut Street traffic signals, we did include into the 2023 street project for this request.
Excellent.
Just
Yes,
so that
thank you.
everybody is aware.
Street and Alley Chair, Councilor Barrett, and then we'll move over to Councilor Paulson.
This is a very prudent thing that we're looking ahead for the future. I'm getting all kinds of information through RAMS, and I believe Brett and Matt, you're getting those. There's going to be all kinds of other money out there. There's TED money out there if we can qualify. There's all kinds of things coming up down the pike that we may qualify for. And we're pretty much set to go because we've got pretty much shovel-ready projects other than going out for bids. And this is a big advantage where other communities do not have that. So we need to go after everything we can do right now. And it's going to be up to staff and Matt and his staff to do this for us. So I appreciate that this being on the agenda today.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Freely.
Yeah, the one concern I have with regard to street and alley is that, for the last 7 years, we've received a letter from Public Utilities telling us between whatever date to trickle water in our basements to keep the water flowing because of the dead-end water lines that don't loop through to the next neighborhood. And I know there's been ongoing correction of that, and I don't know how many of those there are in town, but it's been 7 years since ours has been attended to. And my concern is that with the disconnect of the steam lines, is there potential for further freezing and or increased problems with regard to that with water lines? And if that would be added to a legitimate concern for the city to have to address those issues with the removal of the steam lines that have warmed the water to keep it from freezing over the years.
That would be one bullet point. Councillor Bearable?
Councilor Freelib, I will actually find out, but I have some information for you that I haven't shared in the past. With the removal of steam lines on South Side, with the awful cold weather we had this year, they only had 2 freeze-ups. So the removal of the steam has not affected our freeze-ups very much in the community. We'll see more. North side is a little different because some of that's buried deeper up on north side than it was on south side. But they actually only had 2 freeze-ups due to the steam. So but I'll find that information out. I'll bring it to the next public utilities meeting and find out what they're doing. I know they're looping more 6th Avenue area, the alleys there. They're going to loop a bunch there this year. And I know that you're exactly right. They're looping so they don't freeze up.
And just as a note before, Councillor Johnson, they've been doing that in Midway for years, having took your water. That's not going to change because the street and alley improvement programs for 2030 doesn't include any parts of Midway, which has been doing this for the last 20 to 25 years. So that is a significant concern. It needs to be a bullet point as we make our argument for our funding for 2023 at the bonding level. Thank you, Councillor Freely, Councillor Barbu. Councillor Johnson.
Mayor, I'd just like to clarify that the utilities itself didn't have the freeze up. I happen to know that there are several residences that had water freeze because the steam wasn't coming into their homes. So I just want to clarify that the utility may not have had any major freezes, but a lot of residences are experiencing new circumstances when it comes to heating and water and that kind of stuff. So there will still be a few of those as we move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I think that's what you meant, that the
Yeah,
utilities.
that's what I meant. Steve, I'm sorry, I should have clarified. That's all they told me, that they had were 2 residential freeze-ups during that time. It wasn't theirs. You're absolutely correct, Steve. I apologize for not clarifying that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you. I would just move the resolution forward.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson moves to approve, supported by Councillor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is review Governor Walz's revised Minnesota mask mandate.
Okay, so, there's been a lot of confusion. I've received a lot of telephone calls over the weekend and about what's moving forward and how does that work. And it's my understanding that, we follow what the governor's guidelines are. And if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask, period. If you're not vaccinated, the recommendation is you still must wear a mask. So, you can see here, the city councilor and myself, the mayor, we try to wear our masks on a regular basis, and then when we speak so the public can hear, we're practicing social distancing. We have the plastic up. But if you've been vaccinated, the recommendation and the order from the governor's office, you do not have to wear a mask if you've been vaccinated. Is that correct, Britt? That is correct. So there was some discussion about that. I think it was on the agenda so that we can disseminate that information to the general public. There's a lot of businesses in town that are now relaxing their mask mandate. You see Target made their announcement that they're not going to require any masks at all. Even though the governor says if you're vaccinated, because of a bunch of laws and rules, who's going to ask you if you are or not? But do you think, the responsible citizen throughout this community will wear a mask if they haven't been vaccinated and follow the governor's guidelines as established? We've always followed the governor's guidelines. We did with our executive order. We've removed our emergency order because we didn't think it was necessary. And now following those guidelines that are based on science, that the mandate is, there is no mandate to wear a mask if you've been vaccinated. So hopefully that clarifies some of the questions that people have in the general public. First, Councillor Paulson, and then over to Councillor Bearable. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we need to hear from our emergency management
Not here.
coordinator? Okay, sorry about that.
I talked to him about it earlier today, so.
Okay, and so do we have to make, my question is, do we as a city need to make some sort of a formal motion or a formal resolution to to support the
I
CDC
think
guidelines.
staff would appreciate that when they get questions themselves and when the public come in, that the city council has agreed to follow the governor's relaxation of the mask mandate.
Okay, and then I guess what I'd like to also read is in our packet from the Office of Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, Governor Walz announced the end of Minnesota's statewide mask requirement, aligning Minnesota with new Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC guidance on face coverings. Minnesotans who are not fully vaccinated are strongly recommended to wear face coverings indoors. So I'd like to echo that wording in a motion form, if whoever makes the motion, so that there isn't any, I guess, wrangling regarding HIPAA issues for any of our city buildings. So I think that wording is pretty strong, but then it also allows for the privacy of HIPAA.
Is that your motion?
Sure, thank you.
Motion by Counselor Paulson. Is there support?
Support for discussion.
Support for discussion, further discussion. I think Counselor Bearable had his lay on first, and we'll go to Counselor Johnson.
Yeah,
Counselor Bearable.
I'm in a disagreement with this governor's order because he's missed a huge scientific point in this, being a professional and knowing how all these vaccines and all this other stuff works, and being in stuff with SARS and all the other stuff when I was practicing. He's missed an important point. The people who are already contacted and had COVID, they should not have to wear masks either because they are immune. If you take a look at when they go in and have their studies done for the antibodies and stuff, their antibody levels are higher than the people that have had vaccines. So I disagree with what he's doing. He needs to add the other portion of that. You can't control this anyway. If Target takes it fully off, you're not going to know who's had a vaccine. We're not going to be policing this thing. As far as I'm concerned, the herd immunity is coming down the pike on this, and I don't know how you document those that have had COVID. That's the right of them for privacy, and individuals with the medical professional stuff. So, if we make it non-mandatory and let it up to the individual's discretion, I wouldn't have a problem, Julianne, with what you're going at for people that may want to wear masks. But I can't go along with forcing people to wear masks if they've had COVID themselves, because their antibody factor is high when you look at the studies that are out there in the medical journals.
Okay, thank you. We'll go back to Counselor Paulson in just a moment, but I think the order says highly recommended that they wear masks, not that we're mandating them to do so. Counselor Paulson?
I think that's, Counselor Bearable, I thank you for that, because I think that's why I was suggesting we use that wording. It's a strong recommendation, but not a mandate, and that I feel it's not.
And I can go along.
It's not like an enforceable or something that needs to be policed, or then we're on a slippery slope with HIPAA. So if that's okay and acceptable, I'm fine doing that.
And it also gives latitude for the businesses. If they want to continue to mandate a mask, they could do that as a business. Counselor Johnson.
Mayor, I would request that when the email gets sent out officially, that we really remind our employees that we need to be respectful of people who do choose to wear masks. For me personally, it's become a habit, and I have small children that still need to wear them, or that I still have wear them. So I really want to make sure that we are, Rockridge Public Schools came out with an anti-mask harassment policy, which it's sad that we have to do that, but I think that is something we really need to be considerate of, that I know people who are going to wear masks because they didn't get a cold this winter because of being safe. So I would just like to ask that be included in the email that comes out from the city, that there be language defining the respect of an individual's right to wear a mask as well.
Thank you. We're going to have a resolution for the next Tuesday night meeting, right? Motion, yeah, so we'll make sure that the motion is written in such a way that it gets sent out earlier enough so that as the motion, I think your motion was, Councilor Paulson, was to include all those items in there, that we follow the governor's guideline with the it's highly recommended if you have not been vaccinated, you wear a mask. In addition to that, add on to that motion, if you may, for the motion in the second, Councilor Johnson requested it add in there that we have, the respectful to those who choose to wear masks, right? Is that correct, Councilor Johnson? Very good, thank you.
I think I would leave my motion as stands and then let that be a part of the email body.
Yep.
Which I think makes complete sense, but just for the overall guidance to the staff, I would just follow exactly how the wording is in the document sent by the governor's office. And then that actually brings me to one more question, Britt. In terms of the signage that's, face mask required, Mask Up Minnesota, do they have anything that's coming forward in terms of signage because that might be something that could be incorporated, the library, the city, any of our outbuildings or indoor buildings? Is that something that,
I haven't seen it yet, but the state's been really good about getting that kind of message out, so I will keep an eye on that.
Okay.
And use that graphic.
Okay,
It's a very,
thank
very
you.
good point that, be respectful of those that do choose to keep wearing masks.
and so then I would probably also recommend that the mask requirement signs be removed and then something goes in place of those. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so we'll go with the motion by Councilor Paulson as recommended in the packet. Follow the governor's guidelines with respect to this. It's been supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then the request by Councilor Johnson, I don't know if you need this in the form of a motion or not, to make sure that when we email to our employees, we put that respectful language in there. Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, and then the signage issue you'll be monitoring as well. So thank you. Okay.
Thank you. And then the final item is to discuss the property offer for the MEC. This portion of the meeting may be closed as per Minnesota Statute 13D05 Subdivision 3, unless there's further items to discuss.
Okay, before we move to closed session, are there any other items of concern? Councilor Johnson.
We are now a year and a half into Essentia squatting at the hospital, and I would like to see some formal action taken at some point. I don't know what the update is, and honestly, I just think they need to know that this has gone on long enough for whatever reason. So I will make a motion that we direct staff to work on a bill that can be sent to them as a way to remind them that they have had rent-free for a year and a half, and maybe a little impetus to get this done. I can't think of any other business anywhere that can get away with Sherry had budgeted $60-some thousand a month rent, and we're looking at, let's just round up to 15 months, 16 months. That's an awful lot of revenue the city has missed that they have not had to pay out. So I would move to direct staff to send Essentia a bill and leave it up to them to figure out what that would look like and why.
Mayor,
There's a motion on the floor right now by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Is there support? Is there support? Motion fails for lack of support. Councilor Baraboo.
yeah. Steve, I don't know whether you understand, but it is not Essentia's fault at this point in time. We have not completed the transaction with them. It's at the state of Minnesota's level because that heliport that's sitting up there, state has not signed off to allow the heliport to be moved forward to Essentia Health, and that's the big holdup on it. It's not, and I don't think we want to get involved in sending a bill right now because Essentia Health, through their back doors and stuff, is already discussing building a new hospital here in Virginia, Minnesota. When you take a look, and that's becoming more public as time goes on within the next 4 or 5 years, and I think our council, our legal authority can tell you that's what the holdup is on it. It's not Essentia's fault. They're ready to write the check tomorrow for that $86,000 plus the expenses, but they can't do it until the state, because of the COVID, has not had their offices open. It took me 6 months to get one thing transferred personally through issues with the legal systems of this state of Minnesota and the county. So I think we got to be careful. We don't want to alienate Essentia at this point, because they're ready to pay the bill tomorrow if we get this state problem solved. So that's my point on this. I just can't support going after them right now for money.
Yeah, there was a motion, there was no support, so it becomes a moot point. But we are working on the helipad, both at the local level and at the legislative level through deed and through our local elected officials that represent us as the state along with the lobby firm. And so we have a plan in place. Did you want an update on that? Brian, could you just give us a quick update on the helipad issue? And we're working on two paths moving forward, and not to get any specific detail about it, but we hope to have it resolved soon.
Correct. Thank you, Mayor. And I can give a brief update, and I apologize if it seems vague. Councilor Baraboo is correct. We've got, as the transaction stands right now, both sides of the transaction have submitted all of the necessary documents to close. All we're waiting on is the signature from deed releasing the bond restriction on the helipad and a portion of the elevator that are involved with that property. And both Essentia and the city have been using whatever resources we have available to try and pursue a remedy to that. And essentially, just to get into a little more specific about what the restriction is, deed will not sign off unless one of two conditions have met, either that there's a payment of full fair market value for the property, which Essentia has indicated they're not willing to do, or that the city of Virginia has held the improvements, which would be the helipad and a portion of the elevator that service the property, for 125% of the useful life of the improvement. And it's hard to get an exact number what a useful life of a helipad is, but knowing that it's a concrete structure, I'm going to guess it's at least 25 or 30 years. That being the case, we clearly haven't met that standard. So what we're trying to do is find a solution to those two restrictions that would allow us to transfer. I think all the parties agree that the economic reality is that the city's not in a position to run the hospital, and that it would be a better fit for us to transfer that building out. And so at this point, that is the current situation. We do have two plans moving forward. We're exploring both of those opportunities. And in fact, Mayor, if it would be all right, I actually have to excuse myself to go take a conference call with Mr. Behrens and counsel for Essentia, where we're going to talk about one of our solutions.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick update there. He'll be coming back if you have a question about that. Would that be all right? Or did you want to just continue?
Well, just to respond to Councilor Johnson,
Councilor
if you don't mind, Mayor.
Please do.
This has been a frustration point because it's been so long. And I'm really surprised that this deed portion of it didn't come up a long time ago. I really am. And I just want to let you know, the reason I couldn't support that motion is because I believe in, and I know Brian's out of the room, but I believe in the contract. We did not state anything after the actual bond was paid off, what would actually happen. So there's nothing really written in there that when we entered into this agreement to begin, or the original into agreement. But I do think that we as a council need to have this discussion, and I don't know if that needs to be a closed session discussion at a later date. But I really do need to understand the particulars and about what's fair market dollar value, what does that look like from deed's perspective, and then the 125% of a useful life of a helipad financially, how does that restrict the city? So once Brian gets that information, I think we really do need to have that discussion.
And I think the intent was to do that.
Thank
But
you.
we're still waiting for an answer from DEED, and then there's a lot of negotiations going down, and we're using our legislative representatives to help us move that path. And just to let everybody know, this is not an unprecedented situation. This is not a unique to us. This is situation come up in other parts of the state and other issues, and it's been resolved without any problem. But so as soon as Brian gets that information, we'll come forward and we'll have to have that meeting.
I'll be looking for that resolution, so
We will.
thank you.
We will. Thank you. Okay. Any other items of concern before we go into closed session? Councilor Freelieb and then Councilor Baraboo. Councilor Freelieb.
Yeah, just really quickly. It was one of those principle and practicality things, Steve. I think in principle, I agree they do owe us something. for the 15 months they've been there, but the practicality of where we're at with the whole process is just not timely to do that, like send them a bill. But we hope to close this at some point and be released from the responsibilities of ownership of a building that's no longer something we can practically utilize. So thanks for your efforts.
Thank you. So, Councilor Baraboo.
Well, no, that, it has nothing to do with this item. I just wanted to report one thing. I got a call last night from George Eilertson, our bond counsel on the street projects. They will be going out this afternoon for the sale of the bonds for our street project, and he will know the numbers this afternoon. He will relay those to Britt and to Matt, I believe. They will get those numbers. So just a piece of information. He just wanted a little update on what our economic situation with mining was up here, so I gave him perspective from Rams and also from how the mining companies are going full tilt up here right now. So he just needed that for some of the depositories they're going to put the money in, so.
Yeah, we have a bond call at 1:30 this afternoon for that. Okay, so, okay, any other items of concern to be brought before the council? Okay, hearing none. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion on item 10 as to discuss the property offer for the MEC, and this portion must be closed. The recommendation from staff is to close this meeting. And so I would look for a motion to close this portion of the committee of the whole meeting for that particular discussion.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Freely, and supported by
I'll support, Mayor.
Councilor Baraboo. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Let's take 5 minutes. Little break. Grab some coffee, whatever you need to do.